news on the Old World. Let's see what's going on with it. Hello, welcome to Battling Barrow. My name's Kev, and in this video we're going to take a quick look at some news about the Old World, which was Games Workshop's old setting for Warhammer Fantasy that they nuked back in 2015, and replaced it with Age of Sigmar. So people say that the Old World's gone away, but really it hasn't. It's always been here, just not in its sort of core game form, the war game. We still have Total War PC game listing Warhammer, and more importantly we still have Cubicle 7 doing the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, putting out lots of new material all set in the Old World, which we'll cover that in a bit. But the news here is news from Games Workshop Community talking about their forthcoming Old World game, which is a reboot of Warhammer Fantasy, and it answers a lot of questions, so let's have a look. So the first thing it talks about is having a conversation with Andy Hall, who is the project's leader, so that's good. So it's coming straight from the horse's mouth, which is brilliant. And I should say, I don't know if people need to thank this channel for this, but the Friday before this came out, I sent them a little tweet just saying, can you poke the dev team for Warhammer World just to get any information, and lo and behold, this happens. So thank you, that's fine, you're all welcome. Yeah, so it talks about what's gone on. We talk about the map that got shown first of all, then the stuff on Kislev, and then Bretonia. But that's all very cool, all interesting, great, it's brilliant. But we get down to clearing up some questions, and this is where the real excitement comes in. So bases, square or round? Definitely square is the answer. Warhammer Old World is a reinvention of the classic rank and file game of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Regiments move in ranked up units, strategic moving into positions to launch and receive critical charge, as much as a key part of the game as it ever was. So that's good. So it still sounds like they want to keep it like the old Warhammer Fantasy battle game. Great, but that still had me thinking. So I always thought it was going to be square bases, just the way they started. I always thought it'd be rank and file then, but just because of that, it could mean that it's going to be a different scale, perhaps a War Master scale, 10 or 15 mil. So that gets answered next. Your scale, 10 or 15 mil. What? No, what madness is that? The scale will remain the same as ever it was. People will be able to use their old armies, yay, if they wish, or start new ones, or add miniatures to old armies, whatever they want. That's great. So we're getting the same sort of scale as what we got here. So these old Bretonian archers will be useful for the forthcoming Bretonian range they're bringing out, so I don't have to start all over again. So rules, totally new or 8th edition. So this could just be the Old World, could have just been a rebranded of the 8th edition, trying to give that another go, because it didn't do too well in my opinion. Anyway, both. We've played every single edition of Warhammer Fantasy over the years. Like every player, we have our favourite bits from each, and this is probably... It sounds like they're going down the route which I started doing when, if you're playing Warhammer Fantasy nowadays, why you don't need to play the latest edition. You don't have to play any set edition. You can just cherry pick the bits you like from all those editions and come up with your own house rules. And it sounds like that's almost what they're doing for this. This will be the greatest hits of Warhammer Fantasy. So the Old World will gather our favourite mechanics from the 3rd to the 8th edition. Why 3rd? Because the first two really were... those are the two that you needed a referee in, like a role-playing game. So you'd have it's almost like a role-playing game with mass combat bolted onto it. The first two editions, I guess, the easiest way to do it. So you'd have your opponent, and a referee, a games master, overseeing what's happening. So very difficult to incorporate rules from that into what it became after the 3rd edition. But they're also going to add new elements, new rules, to create something new. So it's not just a rehash, it's greatest hits plus some new hits, hopefully. Factions, orcs or uruks, because that was the next thing, because they rebranded everything for IP reasons and nothing else in Age of Sigmar, and in my opinion it's just stupid. It's one of the things I can't get into that game with. It answers that the boys was called orcs in the old world, and that's what they called. So, and that's written in orc speech. So, yay, brilliant! That is fantastic. That means we're not going to have any of that silliness that's in Age of Sigmar that's just done for IP reasons and nothing else. You have orcs, ogres, goblins, and all that good stuff from traditional fantasy, which is what I like. Setting, what about the World's End setting? I won't read this whole through, but it says keen-eyed observers will know that looking at stuff that's being released, it's not set in the sort of end times, the end of the old world. It's set in the middle of the Empire sort of history, I guess. So that's interesting, and that's the other thing I don't see the point of doing in sort of games where you always have this rolling timeline. If you're doing this whole fantasy world and they always create a background history, so you have all this history, but then they just set it right here. This is where all the game's set. Why not just have, here's the setting of the game, boom, and then you release things in different settings, different time zones in that setting. It opens it up much more than just everything has to happen in now. What's the point if you created all this fascinating background history, but you just set it in now? Cover that whole background history. So for this, I don't know, they're probably not going to do this, but I would say that what they should do is set it in this time, but then perhaps another release, second edition or whatever, they move that timeline, set it in further in the past, further in the future. They just jump around time. They never have it as a now. So that is the excitement of the old world, the news. That's pretty much, and they just clarified it is definitely square bases, and they talk about the release date, and there's nothing really there. It's just done when it's done, which is great. Don't rush this. So that is the Old World news from Games Workshop. But there's more Old World releases, and that is because Cubicle 7 dropped some Warhammer Fantasy news. They currently release the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay game, which is on its 4th edition, which is a really cool role-playing game. If you want to try something different than D&D, give that one a shot. It is great, and it's set in the Warhammer Fantasy world, the old world. They've got loads of products out. I've got a few up there, such the rulebook starter set, loads of adventures on PDF that I buy from wfrp and print out. It's great. So there's loads, and then also they bring out these little sort of snippets like buildings of the of Reichland, monuments, and little things like that. Just have lots of background information for the old world, which is great for just keeping it alive. But they dropped some news that they're bringing out a card game set in the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay sort of world, license, if you like, called Elector Counts. And as I say, we're delighted to announce a exciting new Warhammer Fantasy Roleplaying card game for 2 to 4 players. Elector Counts contains everything you need to vie for control of the Empire. That's great. It says it's coming out in the 4th quarter of this year, so I'm going to pre-order this soon because I like it. What's in the box? Box contains English rules, 112 game cards, a set of tokens, and a player aid card, designed to mimic card games enjoyed by ruffians, gamblers, and adventurers in inns and taverns across the Empire. Elector Counts is a perfect companion game to enjoy between adventures in the old world. Fantastic, whether that be the fantasy roleplay game or when we get the game to play, just think light and easy. I'm really looking forward to it. I like little things like this. I bought Cubicle 7's my goodness, I forget what it's called, but it's based on their One Ring game, and it was like a set. It was very thematic. It was you played the role of hobbits telling stories in an inn, and I love that. Still play that occasionally. It's great. So it's very thematic. So I'm looking forward to this. It looks great. The cards are gloriously illustrated in art, new and old, with iconic pieces joining novel descriptions of loyal soldiers, iconic locations, and famous personages of the Empire. The old Emperor is dead, and his successor is anything but clear. In the halls of the powerful, diplomacy has failed, civil strife is rampant, and trumpets will ring loud and clear. Fight for control of the Empire, securing the holdings and face steel and gunpowder. Who among the Elector Counts is worth ascending to Sigmar's throne? Be out in 2021, January 22. So looking forward to that. That'll be a little Christmas present to the Battling Barrow from me. And I'll bring you more news as and when we get it, but it all seems to be very exciting for if you're into Warhammer Fantasy. not just the main core game, but stuff like this. So that's it. It's just a little short, sharp little news video. Wasn't planned to do this, so hopefully this is alright. Hope you're staying safe and well. Till the next video, take care. Bye bye.